I've great pleasure today welcoming two of the leading authorities on work-based learning in the United Kingdom, Anne Minton and Professor David Young, both of the University of Derby. Together we're going to explore our collective understanding and indeed individual understanding of what work-based learning is. Welcome both of you.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Peter.
coming along. Very cosy area, so I hope we'll have a good and enjoyable discussion. I mentioned there our collective understanding of work-based learning. You two have been involved in work-based learning for a long time now. Indeed, you're recognised as authorities in the field. Would you care individually, first of all, to recount what your understanding of work-based learning is, Anne?
For me, work-based learning is about people using work experience, things that they do at work, thinking about it, using that as a learning experience to then make a difference at work and make a difference to them personally and professionally. That's effectively how I've done my learning, and I think it is a very powerful way of learning as an alternative to the more traditional forms, certainly of higher education.
For me, I think it's important to stress that it's learning from experience. It's not simply experience.
Yeah.
It's not credit or academic achievements for doing your job. It's for demonstrating the learning that you've undertaken as part of that job.
It's about looking for those opportunities that you've got at work where you can learn and you can move things forward. So it's active from the learner's point of view of actually looking for opportunities and not just sitting back and hoping that something will come along. It's about, oh, well, I've read this, I've looked at this, I've learnt this perhaps in a tutorial. How can I use it at work? How am I going to use it? And how can I use it in a real way that's going to make a difference to me and to the company?
And I think it's focused on the individual learner, because you could have 20 people from the same company, but they'll all have different takes on what it is they need to do at work. They'll have different priorities and so on. And so it's an individualised programme rather than something that's just aimed generally at lots of people.
But Anne, you mentioned something that they learnt in a tutorial that they'd read about. How within a work-based learning context are they assisted to be able to take that learning that they perhaps acquired within a tutorial and be able to apply it effectively within the workplace?
Well, obviously you've got tutors who you can talk through ideas with. You've got materials to support you, structures to support you through. So for instance, if you're doing a work-based project, you've got the structure of a work-based project that will help you to think about and marshal your thoughts and provide the structure. You've got your classmates, your colleagues, who you can contact face-to-face if you see them or on tutor. So it's about discussion and dialogue. You've also got people at work that you can use.
Yeah. So it's not something that is divorced from a sort of traditional perception of learning new skills, acquiring new knowledge and understanding. It's taking that from perhaps learning online, from perhaps reading in a book, learning materials, and knowing how to apply it, or learning how to apply that within the work.
I think my take on that is different. What is, for me, the key question is, what's the locus of curriculum design? Is it a body of knowledge? Is it something in a book? Or is it your own professional practice? And for me, the key to work-based learning is that it starts with your own practice, and it starts with your reflection on practice, your ability to contextualise your own practice in what other people are doing, and to express that understanding in terms which are recognised for academic credit.
That's really, really interesting, because mentioning there being able to reflect, being able to pursue a line of study independently, these are very much higher education skills
Yes,
that
indeed.
you want people to acquire, aren't they?
And reflection is a very key skill really for work-based learning, and it
Yeah.
isn't what a lot of people will think it is about navel contemplation. It's purposeful reflection. It's about thinking, you know, there's a variety of models that are available, but it's about thinking, so what have I learned from this process? Now what am I going to do about it?
So what now? What is? It's
Yeah.
very simplistic.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
it
a
works.
useful.
Yeah.
It's a useful little
Yeah.
tag.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
works.
Well, let's take that a stage further. On the programme for which this video is being made now, we're going to have learners who come from a variety of different backgrounds. They're going to be people who are perhaps working in a company, teaching others, training others within that company. But we could also have people who are assessors of QCF NVQs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were an assessor within the tertiary or FE field, what would you say to them in terms of their ability to become more expert as work-based learning practitioners?
I think it's about thinking about your own practice, thinking about how you want to develop, what the opportunities to develop are, and then seeking areas to develop in those areas. So looking at ways in which you can make changes, which you can enhance your practice, and then looking to do that by informing what you're doing. So it could be, okay, you may have a set form of assessment, but any assessment regime will always be looking for feedback to say, is this the best way of doing this?
Yeah.
And it's about taking those opportunities to maybe inform and advise and help.
It's about being critical of the situation in which you're working. And, an assessor, a surgeon, anybody with a form of professional practice is able to look at that practice to identify what it is that my experience, my reading around the subject, my contextualisation, my awareness of others in the field, that awareness is what Elliot Eisner would call connoisseurship, my awareness of the whole field. How can I use that to make my own practice better? Because an assessor is not somebody who just ticks boxes.
But very often they're perceived as
Well,
such, aren't
Exactly,
Well,
and,
yes.
and it's not
You know,
about that.
Within the book that you compiled, Supporting Work-Based Learning in Higher Education, one of the comments you make is that with an NVQ you are assessing, for example, against national occupational standards. Now, an assessor is very often appointed because he has expert technical competence.
Yeah.
We don't think about their competence as a teacher.
Yeah.
And they may not see themselves as a teacher, but once they have made an assessment against the National Occupational Standards, where a student may well be found to be not competent at that time in these areas, their role then shifts, doesn't it?
It's about facilitation, isn't it? It's
Yes.
about helping, it's about support, it's about giving feedback to that student and actually enabling the student to articulate the learning, perhaps in a way that the student's not thought about.
Yeah.
So that, yes, okay, it might result in a tick on a sheet, but actually enabling the student to articulate the learning is really very important. So, for example, if you're working in the hospitality industry and you need to see a student do something, you may not be able to see that as you go and observe the student. So it's about finding a way of exploring with the student how they would deal with that situation.
Yeah. So that's very much about those higher level skills you
Yeah.
were talking about earlier. Being someone who can reflect on the situation you see, come to a conclusion about a way forward and how you're going to help that person in your role as a work-based learning practitioner,
Exactly.
not as an assessor at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how do I know what I know unless I can tell you what I know or write it down? It's that making explicit tacit understandings in the workplace that's the key of it. And that's the real benefit for companies. I mean, we're talking about the credibility of this thing as an academic practice.
Yeah.
But what we mustn't forget is that understanding what it is you do and how you could change it excuse me, that's a massive intellectual capital that's going into the company.
Right.
Yeah, and
That's
for the
really
work-based,
important.
and for the work-based learning tutor, practitioner, assessor, the skill and the higher level skill is being able to enable the student to articulate that, to make that implicit become explicit.
And as an assessor, you may not see yourself as a teacher, but if you're seeing yourself as an assessor, you will understand, you need to understand more than just the technical stuff. What is the context in which I'm being asked to apply my technical understanding?
Yeah.
And that's where participation in a program like this could really support them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really useful point, because one of the challenges we've had, for example, over the last few years, is encouraging young people who are following vocational programs such as NVQ, such as foundation and advanced apprenticeships, to see higher education as a logical progressive step for them. Now, if their teachers, if their assessors haven't had experience of higher education themselves and acquired some of the skills that you've been relating to, then that's a significant barrier to that sort of progression, isn't it?
I think if it's not seen, as you say, if it's not seen as a logical next step, then it is a major barrier. It is.
And within the lifelong learning sector, within the work-based learning arena, you'll get different words being used to describe people's understanding of what they would perceive as work-based learning.
Yeah.
They'll talk about work-related learning. And think, what's your feelings about this real diversity of expressions of this sort of learning?
I mean, for me, work-based learning is driven by the workplace. It's about the workplace, as David said, being the locus of the curriculum, and that's where the workplace comes from. Work-related learning and all those things I'm not very into definitions particularly.
No,
for me, it's about the learner and the learner experience, and it being relevant to work, and assessment and everything being drawn from real work activity.
I think that's the key, isn't it? What it's not is learning a bit of something and then having an industrial example of it. What it is, it takes your own practice, and that's the basis of the curriculum. Now, it's theoretic. It needs to be theoretically underpinned, like anything else, but it might not be from a single. It might not be from a single discipline.
Certainly in higher education.
In higher education,
it has to be theoretically
Oh,
underpinned.
talking about each other there,
Sorry.
but never mind. No, it's okay. I mean, one thing that I sometimes say is that in the early days, I was asked to do a program, management of e-learning programs for tutors who were working in this way. And what I persuaded them to do was not to have the word management, which suggests a body of knowledge, a disciplinary area, but to go, instead of a noun, to go for a verb. So the program was called Managing E-Learning, rather than E-Learning Management. Maybe a bit subtle, but I think if you think in terms of work-based learning as a verb, it's about actions, it's about doing things, rather than body of knowledge, what do you know about it stuff.
But it's that transference, isn't it, Anne? You know, where you have that body of knowledge, and then you're able to situationalise it, to contextualise it within the experience of the individual.
Or you have the situation, you have the context, and you go and seek that knowledge to underpin and develop what you know. And the two, you know, which comes first, chicken or the egg? Which comes first, the situation or the knowledge? You know, the two are almost interchangeable.
It's one of the most powerful things that you can learn, I think, as a teacher, is having the confidence to say to the learner that you're working with, I don't know the answer to that question, but let's go and find out. And it's those sort of independent learning skills that you're trying to encourage within this sort of context that will make them an effective learning practitioner.
Absolutely, and it not only makes them an effective learning practitioner, it makes their students effective practitioners, and therefore it enhances the companies that the students work for, because they have people who are willing to go and find out and look for themselves. They're not sitting waiting to be told. They will go and find out and develop, and that for me is the value of work-based learning. It's not only the enabling of the individual and the empowerment of the individual, it's the impact that that then has on the company.
But it's the empowerment of the individual that has the impact
Exactly,
on the company.
yeah.
And one of the key benefits is that people who are doing work-based learning programs feel more confident.
Yeah.
That's what employers tell us time and time again. They feel better about what they're doing. They've got more of a grip on what's happening because they've looked beyond the day-to-day concerns of what they're doing.
And because they've expressed it to somebody else and they've been able to marshal an argument or marshal a justification because of the particularly in HE, they feel better equipped to then be able to go and present to managers, to be able to put a case for making a change to managers. And that happens at level 4 just as much as it happens at level 6, 7 and 8.
And also at level 2 and 3.
Of course, yeah.
Involved in that.
Yeah.
That's a really good place to draw this discussion to a conclusion. Can I thank you both for giving your time this morning and for contributing in such a positive way?
Thanks, it's been great.
Pleasure. No, thanks.